Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello, this is Beth with Modern Day MS. I'm back to you today, and we're going to talk to another great interviewer, Cory. She's an author of the book Love Sick. Have you heard of it? Okay, I'm going to get her on the phone now, so short lapse to get her on. So please hold. Hope to listen with you soon.
Hello.
Hello, Cory.
Hi, Beth.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Of course.
Jump right in, and I just wanted you to kind of give your background, when you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and kind of your age and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So, when were you diagnosed?
I was just about to look up the date. It was October in 2007.
And how old were you at that point?
I was 28 years old.
Okay, and can you, where in your life were you at that place? How did it happen? Give us a little background.
Yeah. So at that point in time, I was a writer in television and had insurance through the Writers Guild. The writers went on strike, and so I didn't have a job, and I was about to lose my insurance. And I mentioned to my doctor, I've been having this numbness and these weird, bouts of fatigue. And she's like, I'm sure it's nothing. You're in a stressful point in your life. Yeah, you'll be fine. And then she's like, how do you sleep? I'm like, I don't sleep. It keeps me up at night. And she's like, well, I'll just send you to a neurologist just to be safe since you're losing your insurance. Let's just check it out.
That was a good doctor. Good thing.
Yeah. I know. And so I, went to the neurologist, and she did the first MRI, and I came back, and she's like, have you ever had a concussion? Have you ever been bit by a tick? And I was like, what? Why are you asking me all these questions? She's like, well, we found lesions on your brain. It could be all these things. We don't know. And so they tested my B12, and they did the Lyme test, and, lupus. I mean, everything. They did the whole blood panel. Everything came back fine. And she's like, the only thing that's off is your B12. And I was like, okay. She's like, just take some vitamins, keep doing what you're doing, come back in 6 months. She's like, it should be fine by then. All the numbness will go away. And I came back 6 months later. I was like, I don't feel any different. I've been taking B12. I got some shots. And she's like, okay, well, I think it's MS. And she was ready to put me on drugs at that point in time. And she's like, so what do you want to take? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. I'm 28 years old. This can't be happening.
So you did you feel tired or besides the numbness, you didn't feel a little bit off or anything?
I mean, I definitely felt off. I knew something was wrong with my body. It was so vague. It was I was tired and numbness, and, I was forgetting things, but I thought well, whatever, that's just normal life, right?
Right.
And then
it's interesting that they did it, because for my situation was they looked at my MRI, they're like, you have lesions on your brain, it's MS. Like, that was it. You know, it wasn't, they just kind of like told me, and I was like, okay. You know, it wasn't kind of the back and forth. So I wonder why they like hesitated, because you did have lesions.
I know. Yeah, so she hesitated at first, and then she was like, no, absolutely. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not ready for that. She's like, well, you could see a specialist. So I was like, I'm going to see a specialist. They must have better answers.
Yeah.
And I got into a specialist. Like, I had a friend whose dad was a doctor, and so they got me in, like, right away to the specialist. And the specialist was like, well, I think it's MS too, but let's just, like, wait and see. And we'll do some more tests. And they did the spinal tap and the evoked potentials. And those all came back normal. And she's like, I still think that's what it is. So that's what we're going to go with. But I'm not going to put you on drugs, and we're just going to watch you. And so since then, I've been on this sort of, like, you know, those first couple of years, I was like, when is the other shoe going to drop? When am I really sick? When is this really going to hit me? And then I finally moved out of that, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if it's yoga, the way I eat, the way, like, a positive attitude. I don't know what's happening, but I'm doing something right. And my doctor kept saying that, and I was like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and hope that keeps working.
And you're still feeling good today?
Yeah. I mean, I get bigger bouts of fatigue, and I get the MS hug, which is like, you know, when I get very worn down, like I just had it on Monday, and I just spent the day in bed, and I take baclofen. But other than that, I've been very fortunate that I'm still feeling great, you know.
And you don't take any medication for the disease?
I don't, no.
And what about diet?
You know, when I was diagnosed, I was, you know, I was kind of eating somewhat vegetarian, but I switched to, like, going very organic, nothing processed. Like, I tried to eat, you know, a very clean diet lately, because I've been reading a lot about, like, ketogenic diets and fasting. So I've been trying to add that in there, just because I can tell that things are maybe changing in my body. So the past 2 months, I've done a 24-hour or 36-hour fast once a month. And then just trying to eat better fats. So, like, avocados, almonds, you know, eggs. And then, again, still eating pretty clean. A lot of vegetables.
That's great. Yeah, I 100% noticed the eating. You know, I feel so much better when I eat clean. It's just for me, and I do it all day, you know, when my kids are at school. But then at night, it's, like, stressful, busy, running around. And I'm just like, you know, here, we'll just stop and get something, you know, quick and fast. And then, of course, I'm starving by then, and I eat with them. Yeah. So that's my problem. And I feel it, you know, when I eat crap. So I really got to figure out a way to, you know, please them and myself with what we're eating, because it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you definitely feel it now. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Or, like, you know, I'll be on vacation and be like, oh, I'll be fine. You know, everyone else is indulging. And then, you know, I get back and I'm like, I'm so exhausted. I feel terrible. Why did I do that? It wasn't worth all that. And
so do you eat dairy at all?
I do. I don't eat, like, I'll eat cheeses and sometimes yogurt, but I don't really eat, like, I don't drink milk.
Okay. And gluten?
I started to really cut that out. I mean, I didn't eat it to begin with, but I've been trying to avoid that as much as possible, because that's another one I can tell now. I feel like once you cut something out and then you put it back in, you're like, oh, that doesn't make me feel right.
Right. I could tell with the gluten, my stomach just gets, like, so big. You know, I get really bloated.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and then what about alcohol?
I wish I could say I avoid that.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, that's like my wine is my treat. So I don't know if that's affecting me.
I don't know. I know. I you know, it's good for you, and then it's bad for you, and it's not good for your brain. But I'm like, but I need to relax, and I love having wine with my friends, and, you know, after a long day, it's like, oh, wine sounds really nice.
I'm 100% with you. If you're ever in Chicago, we have to meet for a glass of wine.
Yes,
do you go, like, red or white, or do you don't care? Because I asked my doctor, and he's like, red is, you should definitely go for the red wine. Red wine is better than the white. But
yeah, you know, what's funny is I used to drink both, and then when I was diagnosed, I was so stressed that whenever I drank red wine, like I was having like acid problems, like it would really affect my stomach, and I got so sick. And I think it was obviously the stress of the diagnosis, that it wasn't just the wine, but of course then I was indulging in the wine too. And so now, as for like so long, I associated red wine to that feeling. So I've just added it back in, like, oh, this doesn't do that to me anymore. I can drink red wine, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's good. And my doctor said it was good. There's, it's got those antioxidants in it, so that's good.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I should drink the red wine again. It's not going to make me sick. It'll be good for me.
So you've continued to work this whole time since you were diagnosed.
I have.
And so you're a writer.
Yes, and I've been very lucky that, during that time I was working from home. So I never really had to like explain to people why I was gone for doctor's appointments or the spinal tap and I was, in the ER or what, I never had to explain to anybody. So I was very lucky in that sense.
But the people that you work for, did they know you have MS?
They didn't. I mean, they do now because
they do.
Right. And out there in the world. But until then, I had kind of kept it a secret.
It just felt better for you to then. How have you felt since you published the book and now it's not a secret anymore? Did that feel kind of like liberating?
Yeah, it was very liberating. It's nice because you don't have to hide things from people anymore. Like I remember. I was in my late 20s and my parents were suddenly like visiting me every other weekend and people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, they're just here because they want to be, but they were taking me to all my doctor's appointments. And now it's just like.
You didn't feel comfortable sharing it or you just.
I didn't. I mean, I wasn't there yet. Like my close friends knew, but other than that, I didn't want to share. And, I was lucky that my symptoms were invisible. Basically, so nobody really had to know, and now it's out there in the open, and it's nice because people actually, like, I think I was so afraid that people were gonna shun me or disappear or say mean things or do something crazy that I couldn't predict, and I guess I'm pleasantly surprised that people are so welcoming and caring, and they ask. Like, it's so weird now. People are like, how are you? And I'm like, oh, great. And they're like, no, like, how are you? Like, how's your health? And I'm like, oh, I forget. People know now. Like, they actually are concerned,
Right. Yeah, I see that. I mean, I kind of feel it with my website. I have this website, Modern Day MS, so it just kind of is out there, for people to know. And I assume everyone knows. And sometimes I'll mention it, and people, the reactions are always, I think people don't really know how to react. They're always. I just feel like it's better, like, the cat's out of the bag, that's who it's just part of who you are, but
exactly.
It's a hard thing to bring up, and I think sometimes it's even harder for the people to react. They don't know what to do or what to say or anything about it, because I didn't know, before I was diagnosed, I probably would have been in the same situation. How would I react,
Exactly, like I wouldn't have known. And plus, I mean, I think a lot of people don't know about the disease. Like, I think that's, like, the great thing about your website is that, like, it's very informative, and, like, there's so many more resources now for people to understand the disease, which is great,
Yeah. Yes, but then once you start, nobody really knows anyone, but then once you start talking to people, everyone, like, knows someone who's, like, sister or cousin or, everyone knows someone who's, like, somehow connected to it.
Exactly.
So let's, I definitely want you to, plug your book. So tell us the name of your book and a little bit about your book.
Yeah, my book is called Lovesick. I started writing it when, right soon after I was diagnosed, and it took me 8 years to write. But basically, it's my story, and it's how I kind of suddenly, when I was diagnosed, all my friends, I was 28, all my friends around me were getting married, settling down, having kids, and I was sort of in the dating game and enjoying that, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, who's going to want to marry me now? Like, now that I am going to be sick, who's going to take me in sickness and health when the sickness is now inevitable? And so that was like this weird thought that went through my head, and I was like, so many people go through that phase in life, whether it's from MS or something else, where they think like I'm unlovable for some reason. whatever stage of dating or relationship you're in, you kind of feel that. And I was like, I know this is a universal story. And also at that point, like, there was no real social media. So there weren't like these communities of MS warriors out there sharing like how great they were doing or like the things they were overcoming or their bad days, and then people would support them. It was just a lot of like chat rooms that I would find late at night, and I would go through this like wormhole of staying up until 4 a.m, like sitting on my couch all alone, and it would be like people posting like the worst things that had happened to them and how devastated their lives were and how they were never going to get better. And I was like, is this my future? Like, what is happening?
That's exactly what I felt when I did start the website, because every single, my parents went online, my sister went online, everyone goes online, and you just read the most depressing things, you know? And then one person said to me, like, this is not the MS that, like, our parents grew up with. This is, like, there's a ton of research happening. There's a ton of new information, like, hopefully our generation is going to be a lot different than the generations before us of people with MS.
Exactly. And so I was just like, okay, there has to be like somebody writing, like maybe there's books. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to go find who's written books. But like the only books that were out there were Montel Williams and Meredith Vieira's husband and like Squiggy. And I was like, oh, so it's like famous older men who are married. That is not my demographic.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I mean, I did the same thing. I ordered a bunch of books, but they were all like depressing, They were. They were. It was not the right thing for me. Like I ordered I remember a yoga and MS book, and it was all people who are like, seated in a wheelchair, And I was like, that's not my yoga practice. I'm going to do more than that. So yeah, and I read your book in literally a weekend. Like I feel like I love to read, but I have problems with like focusing now, or there's just so much going on, with our phones and stuff, that it's really hard for me to just sit down and read. I really have to be into it. And your book, I read it like in a weekend. It was such an easy read. I could totally relate. I think you're a great writer. I think everyone would love it. It's on Amazon, right? They can get it, or your website, or
it's on Amazon. Any bookseller can get it. You can get it through the publisher, Write Out Publishing. And if you just search Lovesick by Cory Martin, you'll be able to find it.
Okay. So you were a yogi before you got diagnosed, right?
Yeah, I was. I'd been practicing. I think I had started like a year and a half before I was diagnosed.
Okay.
And I honestly think the reason that I said anything to my doctor or knew anything was wrong with my body was because of yoga, because I was so tuned in to what my body was supposed to be doing, not even just on the mat, but like in life in general, that when something started to go awry, that's when I said something to my doctor. Like I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was.
Right. And we have a lot in common. Like I relate so much. I taught yoga the morning that I woke up with the right foot and leg numb, and I was doing like a plank, and I was like pressing my heel back, and I'm like, my right side is like numb, and I attribute that 100% to yoga, because people are like, people walk around for 6 months, a year with numbness, but they don't know their body, and they don't know that that's wrong. So I also am a huge proponent of yoga, and it has helped me so much, both physically and just, emotionally and mentally and all that.
Yes, for sure. I mean, like, I think yoga is the thing. Like, I used to think that yoga was my safe spot. I was like, when I am on my mat, I do not have MS. Like, and this was in the early days of diagnosis, like, okay, my body can still do these things. I might have to pull back a little bit. If I get too hot, I have to, like, sit in child's pose. But otherwise, I'm like, no, my body is, like, powerful here when it's on this mat. And, like, that's what I used to tell myself in that first year. Just like, no, you are good. In this room, you are safe.
Yes, I can relate. So you still practice regularly?
I do. I don't practice as much asana, like the actual poses, anymore. I should. I've been trying to do at least like 20 to 30 minutes on my own at night every day after work. But the problem around here, I don't know if this is happening in Chicago, but a lot of people are turning on the heat in the rooms, even if it's not hot yoga.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you get affected by heat, but I do. And
Yeah.
it's like my kryptonite. Like, I become super weak. I get very tired. I'm like wiped out for 6 hours after I do the yoga, even if it's not a crazy class. And I'm like, why are you guys heating the rooms? Like, I don't understand. Like,
there's a studio that I found here that uses the infrared heat. Do you know anything about that? And it's different. It's like I sweat, but I don't feel that same hotness. It's just a different kind of heat. And so I'll send you a link or something about it. So it seems to work for me. There's been a class where I've had to leave. You know, I've been there.
Yeah.
And I'm not feeling it. You know, there's a certain side of the room that I notice is like more hot than the other. You know, so it's like I have to all kind of calculate out. But I do a lot of yoga in my basement because I can control the heat there, and you know, it starts out a little cold, and then we warm up, you know, our bodies, and it's a good amount for me. But yeah, that's too bad about the heat. There's got to be something somewhere that
I keep saying there's a few, but you know, they're like further from my house, and it's like more of a trek to go do it. You know, like all the close ones are like, oh, crank up the heat. This will make you sweat. It's like, no, I don't need that, please.
I mean, and other people who don't have MS have told me it's too hot. I mean, my mom, she's like, I don't want to be that hot. You know, people like, you know, the windows open and a little breeze. So I don't know. I work on more studios without the intense heat.
Exactly.
So do you do a lot of meditation?
I do meditation, breathing, just the other aspects, I guess.
And it helps you a lot.
It helps. Yeah, it helps me.
Anxiety-wise or...
Because I think, like, for the most part, I'm like, okay, I'm doing good, and I don't think about MS, but then it's like, of course, when I'm fatigued, or when I have to get my yearly MRI, or when I have to go to the doctor, then it's like, oh, it's very real again, and then the anxiety comes back, and you're like, oh, do I have to deal with this again? Like, can I be normal?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have to schedule an MRI this month because I have an appointment in January, and you have to do the MRI, you know, a couple of weeks before. And I'm like, just making an appointment for me is the hard part. Once I have an appointment, I end up going, you know, and then I end up leaving. I'm like, it wasn't that bad. It's just the whole leading up to it that I don't, So I got to do that. Anything else you want to share about your journey you think would be helpful to other people?
I think the great thing now is, like, there's blogs and websites like yours, and find people on social media that, like, you can connect with. You know, like we were saying, like, it's not all crazy and bad, and, like, the world isn't ending because you're diagnosed. Like, you know, you can find a great support system outside of the family, you know, because, like, I have a great family and friends, but they don't really know what I'm going through, you know, so I think it's been great to connect with, like, you and other people on social media, and, you know, people have read my book and found me, and it's, like, so nice to hear other people's stories that I'm not alone anymore. I mean, I guess that's the thing, is, like, you're not alone. We're all in this together.
Yep, and that's what it says, Modern Day MS, the tagline's, you are not alone, because you feel alone. You really do. And I have, you know, a husband and a family and everyone who's really, you know, they want to be there for me, but they, you know, it's hard, like, I think I'm a better writer than talker. You know, it's hard to, like, say a lot of that stuff. So the fact that I could just write it down, and I feel like you did that in your book, it's just kind of another way to kind of express ourselves, because it's hard. It's even hard to put into words. You know, like, my husband was gone last night. He came home, and I was like, I'm happy you're home, but I just need to be alone right now. I'm just like, my day's been crazy. I just need to, like, be alone. So, and I think he understood, you know. Yeah. He tries to, but it's hard to kind of explain that all.
It is.
So you are dating now.
I am.
I was excited when there's a new article on Modern Day MS which Cory wrote. You guys should check it out. So that's how long you guys been together?
We've been together 4.5 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, we live together now, so, you know, hopefully next steps are coming.
Yeah, and how does he handle that?
He's been really great. I mean, you know, I dated some very terrible people who were very mean about the MS.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when I told him, he was just like, okay, we'll get through this. And when I'm not feeling well or, you know, things are happening, he's like, okay, just take some time off. Like, just, you know, you're lucky that you work from home. Just lay in bed today, watch a movie, take care of yourself. And so that's nice. And, you
That's
know, I'm
very
sure,
nice.
yeah, and I'm sure there's like things he worries about that maybe he doesn't talk about to me, but
Mm-hmm.
at least I feel supported, you know?
That's the most important. I
Uh-huh.
do. My husband and I talk about. He's like, you know, as we said, all this negativity online. There's a lot of stories of people whose marriages fell apart and stuff because of MS. You know, and it's like
Yeah.
you just got to communicate. That's what we realized. You know, if we don't communicate that, you can't read each other's mind. You have to tell them what's going on. And I think that they want to help us. You know, they just have to know how to help us.
Exactly. And like sometimes I just need to cry. Like
Yeah.
you just got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I've made that clear. And he's like, okay. Like I don't need to fix anything. I'm like, no, just be here. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I'm so glad that everyone else got to learn about you, and hopefully they'll read your book. And
Yes.
yeah, no, it's been great talking to you. As I've said, like we both are writers, yogis, have MS. Like it just seems like there's just so much that we have in common. So it's been
I
fun to
know.
talk.
I will definitely connect next time I'm back in Chicago and let you know.
Do you come here often?
Not as much anymore, but my sister's moving back in February, so I'll be coming back more.
Oh, we should definitely get together, do yoga, have some
Yes,
wine.
some wine. I love it. And this has been great talking to you. So
Yeah.
thanks for including me.
Oh, of course. We'll definitely be in touch, and thank you. Tell everyone how they could get in touch with you, your social media or anything, if they have any more questions.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's at Cory Martin Writes, and my Facebook is Cory Martin Yoga, and that's where you can find me.
Okay, and I am you can email me at beth@modernDayMS.com or go to the website Modern Day MS, and then I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that, /Modern Day MS. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Cory, and everyone.